doing some of those things.
Oh, sorry, Jared, I'm gonna record. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I was just asking, I hadn't actually started. I was just asking what kind of things people would like to learn from this presentation. So we've got what to do with imposter syndrome once we identify it. We talked a little bit about just briefly about some of the advice that's typically out there. Fake it till you make it, and body posture is important. What other things would you like to learn from this presentation?
It would be interesting to know why we get it. Even
Yes,
if all of the information is clearly like you're great at this, why do we still feel imposter syndrome?
100%. Iris, is there anything you would like to learn?
Actually, they've already went over everything I was gonna say.
Perfect. That's my favorite kind. Okay, let me
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
do want to learn what does that look like really for a writer imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. Yes,
Like, what does that really look like? I mean, I work in business and I work in a men's world. I'm usually the only woman in the room wherever I go. So I know what imposter syndrome feels in the business world, but in the
Mm,
writing world, in an actor, how does that look like?
yeah, absolutely. Let me share this screen and we'll start talking about this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
So I'm going to start off actually talking a little bit briefly about what it actually does look like. I was just at StoryCon. Does everybody know what StoryCon is? It used to be Teen Author Boot Camp. It became it's a large conference that happens downtown. Had about 3,500 people show up to that, and I was on a panel called the Brandon Sanderson Effect, and there were five of us on the panel. Excuse me. There were five of us on the panel, and when we were talking to people, when we did the panel, we got to the Q&A, and somebody asked us, they're like, "How did you get to be up there? Like, what did you do that landed you that why do you deserve to be up there?" Kind of is what they were asking, and each one of us were kind of like, "We're just lucky to be here," because everybody in their different environments will feel imposter syndrome slightly different. For us, it's we're sitting in front of a bunch of people, like 300 people showing up, probably not 300, it's probably like 75 people, but they were there to see us talk about a topic that we know about. But at the same time, we're like, I'm sure there's smarter people in the world to listen to than us on this topic. And you just get this innate, I don't deserve to be here. Funny story. The same thing happens. I was talking with Brandon Sanderson last year, and Brandon Sanderson even joked. He goes, "I'm just waiting for somebody to figure out my writing's not very good." I'm like, Brandon Sanderson, who's incredibly successful, you know, um, feels imposter syndrome. Everybody does, no matter what level of success that you're at, because we kind of know deep down inside, like even if we have a lot of people around us, cheering us on, we kind of like, ah, man, but do I really? There's always going to be that voice. So it does look a little bit different. So let's jump into this. Let me see if I can advance this. Here we go. So we're going to talk about understanding the problem. Most people really understand it. Some people don't understand it as much. We'll talk about how to start shifting your mindset once you've identified what those pieces are. We're going to talk about why life is a team sport and so is overcoming imposter syndrome. It's a team event. And then there's a saying that goes around mostly in like the business world, checkers or chess, not checkers, right? When you're making decisions that are more advanced than the simple basic what's right in front of me kind of decisions. And then we're going to talk about um, the perspective and the superpowers that come with once you understand it and how to use it in your favor, which is interesting. Most people don't understand that imposter syndrome can be a superpower because everybody has it. You know how to tune into it with everybody else around you. So let's get to this first one. This is pretty self-explanatory. Most everybody knows that it's a issue of self-doubt. It could be that you don't feel like you're smart enough, that you don't have the right set of skills, that you're not as achieving as somebody else. When I got invited to be on Brandon Sanderson's Writing Excuses, I actually thought they made a mistake. It was in their email to me. They said, Jared, we want to have you on. And I actually emailed back and said, are you sure you got the right Jared? That's how much self-doubt I had in myself, that I was positive they had made a mistake in picking me, because I only had one published book at the time. And writing excuses is not a small podcast. And then they emailed back and said, no, yeah, you're the right Jared. You're the right person. Excellent. And then a couple weeks later, I ran into Dan Wells, who's on the podcast. And I said, Dan, excited about the podcast, waiting for him to say, oh, that was a mistake. And he just reaffirmed it again. No, we're excited to have you on. And so I'm like, what? Why do you want me? Like, I wanted to understand. My self-doubt was so powerful. Like, I wanted to know the justification that they had in their brains for inviting me, because I couldn't see the path forward. But he laid out a super compelling case, and he was really excited to have me on. And we talked about many different things, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, that little voice. I mean, we see something. Sometimes it gets too good to be true. Sometimes it's I shouldn't be on this panel. Sometimes it's I shouldn't be teaching this class. Sometimes it's I shouldn't receive this recognition with everybody else in those pieces. Okay, this is one of my all-time favorite quotes. I'm gonna read it, but instead of having you read along, I'm gonna ask you to actually close your eyes while I read this, just so you can kind of take in what it's actually saying here. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who actually is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly who errs, who comes out short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows with great enthusiasms the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who knows at worst, if he fails while daring greatly, so that in his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know the victory nor defeat. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Teddy Roosevelt, he was really powerful in his statement there, because we hear both critics. I mean, when you start publishing stuff online, there's people who will say stuff. There's people you'll hear remarks, positive and negative, in classes or panels that you teach. But the most negative one is the little voice that lives inside your head that like treats you poorly. That's what I hate. It's like we always have this voice, and we can't completely silence it, but we can start to figure out how to turn it down. But it's when we understand that everything that we're doing, that we're struggling, the struggle that we put ourselves through is worth it in the end, regardless of what that voice says. First of all, regardless of what other people's voices say. One of my favorite stories to tell is about Moby Dick. Everybody knows Moby Dick. Everybody knows Melville. Most people don't know that he was a best-selling author until he wrote Moby Dick, and it destroyed his career. His reviews, yeah, right. His reviews were so bad, and you could Google them. His reviews were so bad, just awful, the worst. Absolutely crashed his career. Nobody was wanted to pick it up and read it, and he, wrote a little bit after that, but he was really nothing like he was before. But fast forward 100 years, and he's one of the most read authors, required reading in many places. It's one of those things that even in that moment, I can't even imagine to him listening to the critics or how powerful the self-doubt was after the book came out. But if he could look forward, if he could have seen 100 years later, no, I was right. I did it right. The critics were wrong. That's how powerful your writing and your efforts are. Sometimes you don't see that fruit right in that moment, but it could be in the long term. And that's hard for us to do because we love instant gratification. Shoot, I love chocolate. I love caffeine. I love, I love video games, right? I want to be happy right now. And so sometimes it's hard to then say, okay, what I'm doing now is going to be great for me 10 years from now or, 5 years from now. We have a hard time with that. Even when we're in the business world, when we're making goals, our goals are like, okay, what are we going to do this quarter? What are we going to try and do this year? Sometimes we extend to another year, but really that's not really long term when it comes to our process. Or we'll give some some verbal cues to it. We'll say like, yeah, we'll plan 5 years out, but the plans aren't really that solid. They're very generic. So, yes, okay. Let's jump into, we're going to talk about elephants and monkeys. These are two analogies that I love when talking about the imposter syndrome. And we talked about identifying, right? We identify the monkey that sits on our shoulder that is chaotic, jumps around, constantly gets our mind to shift, and then self-doubt. Like they whisper into your ear and say that you're not good enough, you don't belong here. And you're like, excellent, that's what I need is a monkey that I constantly keep with me. And then there's the elephant, which is elephants are strong and powerful creatures, but so often they're conditioned to be tethered by things that just don't compare, right? Or where the simple rope can keep a giant elephant from moving, even though the elephant could clearly move without, pull beyond the restraints. But it's our conditioning. It's what we've learned growing up. When we're kids, we're not afraid to fail. We don't have the monkey yet. We kind of get the monkey as we get older. Some of it is a mixture of things. Some of it's from society, some of it's from schooling, some of it's from parenting. And not that they all set out to like, how can we make everybody have self-doubt? It's just one of those things that starts to slowly build in, and when you're in a classroom and you raise your hand and you're really like, I think I know the answer, but then the self-doubt comes in, and then it's verified when the teacher's like, no, that's not the right answer, but it's close. You take that ping, you take it personally. And the next time something comes up where you think I know, you're like, but I'd like to not raise my hand and get dinged again. We these things get trained into us over time. That's what keeps us, our powerful selves, from actually becoming what we could be, right? Move to our full potential. We give it that power due to the conditioning. So it requires action and personal experience to actually make it so that you can, make the monkey small. You take the power away from the monkey, and suddenly you're able to move forward with anything that's put in front of you. Anything's possible at that point, which is really cool. Okay. It's natural for people to fall into cycles when it comes to, obstacle achievement. Some people believe that when they've achieved a certain level that they won't have imposter syndrome. If I become an award-winning author, then I won't have imposter syndrome. They still do, right? I'll become a best-selling author. I won't have imposter syndrome, but they still do, right? There's no single achievement that will ever shake it all the way. And so to say that that's the end point, then we'll be okay. It's interesting. They did this study with Olympic athletes who train their whole lives to be excellent at the one thing. And their whole lives are like, I am there to get the gold. Like their whole goal is to get the goal. They go to Olympics and they win the goal and they are happy in that moment. But after that moment, they have this big crash of, I thought I would be happier afterwards. I thought I would feel like I'm not an imposter and I didn't just get lucky. But they have that. And that's why some athletes feel like they have to compete in lots of different Olympic sports, partially for livelihood, but partially because that voice is always haunting them, which is interesting. So when you have these self-doubts, it can lead to over preparation or procrastination or both, which is the funniest thing because it happens to all authors. I joke with people when they, having run different conferences with organizations, you'll open registration and you'll get like 50 people who sign up right away. You're like, excellent, 50 people is a good start. And then nobody signs up for 3 months. And we're like, oh my gosh, is this going to be successful at all? And then like 2 days before the conference, 100 people sign up. And you're like, I tell everybody that's because that's what writers do. We are incredibly good at over preparing and procrastinating at the same time. We know we need to go to the conference. We want to go to the conference. I'm going to sign up for this. And so if it was impulsive enough, you're like, I signed up. And then you forget. You're like, did I sign up for that? And the whole time you're like, wait, I just need to double check. And you're checking your email. Oh, yeah, I did sign up for that. Or it's the constant reminder like, oh, no, I need to get this. And then you feel rushed and you finally sign up. And some people miss conferences only because they forgot, because the self doubt was like, I need to prepare. No, I'm in the wrong place. So it's funny that over preparation and the under preparation both come from that self doubt piece that's connected to all of these things because we're unsure of our decisions, unsure of what we're supposed to be doing next. And we could be reluctant to take on new projects. Some of us will camp on a single project for forever. And I did that also, right? Like it took me 7 years to write my first book. My first book was like actually written within like the first 2 years, but I never felt like it was written until 7 years, until the full 7 years was up. And that's just because I was reluctant to do something else. I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to be good enough? Am I doing things right? All sorts of things. But also, um, it prevents us from relishing those achievements. It prevents athletes from really relishing their gold medal. And sometimes we internalize failure more than success. And it's true. There's that psychology to it where they talk about how we can have 10 nice things said to us in a day, and we can have one bad thing said to us in a day, and we will remember the one bad thing that was said to us during the day, and maybe we'll remember one of the 10 good things. And that's because we latch onto those pieces of criticism that's how our brains are built, unfortunately, not in a good way that way. But we need like 10 pieces of good information in order for us to really overcome each single one bad thing that we see come up or comment that's made at some point. So it's important. So now we've recognized it. Now we understand the effects of it. Now let's talk about how to get more into it, how to move beyond it. Now I did this wonderful colorful graph because I thought, you know what, I need colorful graphs. Writers don't get enough of these in their slides. No, it's kind of funny. In this graph, there's like that blue line that kind of shoots off. That's what everybody thinks their success is going to look like with their self-confidence. I'm not going to be an imposter once I hit this level, and I'm just going to keep going. But no, everybody actually drops down. They just do. And some people are weird in a good way, where they don't get like great gratification from their success, but they also like are like almost monotone with their like, okay, I'm here. Some people are just that way. It's part of their mentality, which is okay. But you could be any one of these tracks except for the blue one, because the blue one is an unrealistic expectation that we set out ahead of time. Okay. So how to start the shift? How do we start? Now we've recognized it. How do we start getting ourselves moved away from the imposter syndrome that's camping on our shoulders, right? We start reinforcing our support team. I'll get more into that in the next section. I had to put that note for myself because I always just want to explain it. One of the things that most people are missing is writing down all your accomplishments daily. You need to write down, keep like just even if it's a quick line. I wrote 500 words today. I did my laundry and dishes. Write down your accomplishments daily, the good things that have happened to you, and maybe a struggle that you overcame during the day. Hey, the car wouldn't start, but I was able to figure out how to get somebody to come help and jump it, and I replaced the battery. So I've overcome this challenge, right? We forget things very quickly. We don't remember things over time. But if you keep these just very simple logs for yourself on the positive things that you do every day and the trials, the things that you've overcome, then when you look back after a couple of months, you go, "Oh, I didn't remember I did that. I didn't even remember I went through that trial, but I overcame it." And that starts to help you feed the positivity. that starts to feed into your mind, where you're starting to give your elephant strength, right? You're starting to be like, okay, not only can I do it, but I do it on a daily basis. Now, it could be as detailed or simple as you'd like to be. I recommend at least starting out simple so that you can be consistent, and then growing it if it feels right for you. Um, Comparison is the hardest piece to this puzzle, because when you get invited to teach at a conference, when you get invited to sit on a panel, you see everybody else who's sitting on the panel or everybody else who's teaching, and you compare yourself to them, unintentionally or intentionally, right? Sometimes you'll look people up and you'll go, what's their bio? What's their story? How does mine compare? But that's not why you were invited. You weren't invited to do that thing or participate in that way just because your profile happened to match up or counter somebody else's. It's because you earned it. You deserve to be there. Another great quote is, comparison is the thief of joy. When you start to compare things against other people, whether it's success, whether it's writing style, whether it's if their car is better, you start to then think mine's not as good. I had a wonderful opportunity a couple years ago with a company. I was sent to a couple different countries. I was sent to Guatemala, Nicaragua, and the Philippines. And I didn't understand how well I have things until I visited those other places. And I realized that my comparison was all wrong. Like, having my kids, and we would always talk about how we couldn't afford all the nice, most expensive, shiny things, and that's okay. But I go to these places and they're truly grateful for what they have in these little modest places. And I think to myself, wow, I live like a king compared to many people. I need to not compare. I need to not say mine's greater or less than. I just need to be satisfied with what I have. And it's hard to do, but you have to stop comparing your stuff against others. I jokingly say that's what editors are for. They can compare all they want because they can help you sort out problems in your stories. But starting to eliminate those comparisons as you see other people around you. Starting a routine of gratitude, especially for those who are around you. So often, and I do this, for me, I actually set it on a random cadence where I'll get a reminder that just says, text a couple of people and just thank them for being awesome. And I will do it. I will pull up my phone wherever I'm at, and I'll be, hey, thank you so much for being an awesome friend. I really appreciate it. Just out of the blue. Now, first of all, they want to know if they need to bail you out of jail as soon as you start doing that. They're like, have you been arrested? Are you broke down? Like, what's going on? What's the emergency? And it actually speaks to how good of a friend they are, right? Because they're like, I feel like I need to be there for you if you're being just grateful. And partially because some people will only express their gratitude right before and ask, which is not wonderful. But start a routine of just being grateful for friends and family members, and try to make it random and out of the blue. So one of two things don't happen. They don't get used to it, because if every day you wake up and text everybody, hey, thank you so much for being an awesome friend, it will be great for like a week. But after that, they're kind of like, okay, no, I get it. And it starts to wear on its effectiveness on the gratitude. But by expressing those little bits of gratitude, what you'll see in return is, more often than not, they're like, no, you're an awesome friend. And it starts to reinforce your self-confidence. So when you go into the next part of your project, when you're moving into the next conference, you'll go in with a little bit more confidence. And it's great to have that. Now, finding a grounding object is one of the things that I think is incredibly strong. So when we start to recognize symptoms of self-doubt, there are a few steps you can take. So if you're at a conference and you're about to go into a panel, and let's say you're on a panel with somebody like Brandon Sanderson. Like, okay, Brandon Sanderson and Brandon Mole are on the panel, and you're the third person. And you're like, maybe you haven't even published a book. Maybe you published a book. Maybe you published a lot of books, but they're not in the same topics. You're like, people are not here to see me. We start to fill our heads with these voices, and you can recognize, okay, the monkey is extra loud right now before I go into this panel. What can I do at this point? So doing a couple things, finding a grounding object. And what I mean by that is pick out a song or a movie or an object. It's hard to watch a movie just before a panel, but the night before going on the panel, watching a movie that you just know warms your heart, that makes you feel good, that the message is wonderful, right? Really helps. Listening to a song just before you go on is incredibly powerful. All athletes do it before they go to face their teams. When I was in high school, we were going to play our state rivals, and it was a huge game. And this guy who was an offensive tackle who played next to me, huge, just a gigantic man, not quite as big as Andre, but he was a big guy. And he was listening to his music in the locker room. And I've never asked him what he listened to, but I turned to him one time. I'm like, yeah, well, after we won the game is when I turned to him. I'm like, hey, what did you listen to just before the game? Like, what are you listening to that really gets you pumped up for the game? And he goes, this is going to sound silly, guy. I'm like, well, nothing could sound silly. Like you destroyed them. Like you were played amazing. He goes, yeah, I love the soundtrack from the Disney Beauty and the Beast. And I'm like, okay, I did not see that coming. And he explained to me in that moment that whatever there is in there in that music for him, it silences everything else. It silences doubt. It silences caution. And it brings to him just a little bit of happiness inside. And that's what he carries out there. Because now when he goes out there, he's not, I'm not sure I can do my job. I'm not sure I can know the play. He's like, I'm happy with what I'm going to do. And I'm working really hard to accomplish. So that's when I'm like, holy cow, I grabbed a hold of that. Now, Beauty and the Beast soundtrack doesn't quite do the same thing for me, but you find your song, you find your music that will bring you some inner peace before you go into these situations or when you're starting to have these situations. We talked about it briefly. One of the most powerful things you can do to raise your self-confidence is power posing. Power posing manifests itself in a couple different ways. There's a wonderful TED talk about it where you could do the Wonder Woman or Superman pose where you have your hands on your hips kind of and your elbows kind of triangles. A lot of people feel uncomfortable doing that in public, which is fine because if you got to hold it for a solid like 30 seconds to a minute, they also recommend doing that in like a restroom for a second, just so you're away from the public. And what that does is that powerful pose psychologically starts to fill yourself with more endorphins. You feel like, okay, I'm ready. Now, things that you can combine with it, if you don't know it, box breathing is amazing to both slow down your heart and bring more oxygen to your brain. It's easy to Google, lots of opportunities there when it comes to that piece. When you go into a meeting or you're on a panel, and this sounds counterintuitive, but you need to make sure that you sit up straight. You need to make sure that your hands are out, that you're, they say take up as much space as possible, but not in a way that would be rude to everybody. But for most people, when they start to have that imposter syndrome, they put their hands together when they're talking and they kind of lean forward a little bit and they kind of shrink ever so slightly. And it does that inside your brain too. Your actions are infecting your brain. So then you start to go, okay, yeah, not sure I belong here. But when you sit up straight and you have your hands out and you're just like, okay, we can get through this. It starts to then help you move beyond that. Instead of thinking about why you shouldn't be there, you start thinking about how can I answer this next question so that it's the most engaging for this audience and it makes sense. So yes, for me, like I mentioned in there, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is one of my favorite all-time movies. The newer one with Ben Stiller. I do like the old one also, just in case anybody didn't know, it's a remake, actually a remake of a remake, but the newest iteration is the one that I like. And Enjoy the Silence from Depeche Mode. That's my song. That's my jam that like I can really zen myself and move beyond whatever doubt I had in my mind. Okay, before I move on, does anybody have any questions? I know I've been talking a lot. I see ours is good. Is everybody else good? They've got their invisible yes? Okay. All right. Okay. It's hard because we're writers and writing is such a individual lonely thing. We actually build it into our brains that we kind of feel like the world, like we have to take on most of this stuff by ourselves. I mean, sure, we drag our families into it, whether they want to or not, right? But I can't tell you how many stories I've forced my wife or kids to read, or my mom or my sisters, right? They've all had to read stuff. I'm dragging them in, kicking and screaming, but it's bigger than that. The team needs to be bigger than that. Uh, Getting through both imposter syndrome and as a career and marketing and successful, it's a team sport and it needs to be treated like that. If you were assembling a league of superheroes around you right now, you're like, okay, this everybody around me is going to be in my league of superheroes. Then you would go a couple things. You're like, okay, what are they both? What am I doing for them, and what can they do for me? How can we help each other be successful? And not everybody in my circle has to be a writer. That's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. They'll get into a writing group and they're like, kind of like these people, but they're not wonderful. I'm like, okay, well, you need to find better super friends. That's not the attitude you need to take. You need to get to a point where you feel like the people in my circle, I need to feel like I could trust them with anything. I can text them and say, I'm really struggling right now to talk to people at this event, and I know I need to. And they could text back with words of encouragement and be able to really be there to support you. There's one example where when I very first went to my very first meeting before I started volunteering for anything, right? I attended this writing group, and on my very first meeting, I'm sitting in the back of the room, as most people do, because I didn't know anybody. I'm like, I don't want anybody to actually talk to me. I just want to be here. And the president of that chapter stood up and said, hey, the previous president had to step down, so they've stepped up as president. We need somebody to be the vice president of the chapter. And they're like, if whoever that would be, if you want to just email us and let us know, we'll take that into consideration. And I looked around and I said, well, good luck to whoever that is. Like, that's great. I'm brand new here. I don't want to do anything that causes wakes. And as the meeting went on, there was this little tickle in the back of my brain because it was a part of my goals to participate more, not just attend, to participate more in stuff in the community. And so I texted two of my friends and my wife. And I said, hey, I'm too busy, right? Like, I've got 3 kids who are autistic. One's, a heart patient, like we've got 5 kids in total. Like, we have too much on our plate, right? Like, this is like, I shouldn't volunteer. I should just be here to attend. And all of them texted back and said, you should at least send the email and see what they say. Let them determine that instead of you, because we think that you would be wonderful. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But because I had my team supporting me, I sent them an email and I did it as simple as possible. Listen, I was not flourishing. I said, hi, I'm Jared. I'm brand new to the chapter. Thank you for welcoming me. I know you said this thing. Here's a link to my LinkedIn, which is the worst kind of, writing resume you could send somebody. Here's my LinkedIn. Thank you very much. And that was it. Like, that, super simple. And the meeting ends. And as it's ending, I'm walking up to say hi to the speaker, and the president comes running over to me and she goes, Jared. I'm like, yeah. She goes, congratulations, you're our new vice president. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, you're it. You sent an email. I'm like, there's got to be better people than me to be vice president of this. I'm brand new. Nobody, you don't know me. I could be a serial killer. And then she said, yeah, we're writers. We're all serial killers. So I'm like, okay, that's fair. So not only did my team help me overcome my imposter in that moment, my monkey in that moment, but after she reaffirmed it, I felt more confident that I could do the thing that I was so doubtful about. And I knew that they were loving and supportive, and then we'd make a great team to be able to do what we could for that chapter. So when you have your team around you, not only will they support you, they'll help you be more creative. They'll celebrate your joys so much more with you. They'll surprise you and have fun with you, and they'll dramatically reduce burnout, which goes along with, effort. I put so much effort in and I feel tired and I'm kind of burnt down on this project or this thing. when your support group sees that, they know how to support you because you work with them often. So they'll be like, okay, you know what? You need to take some time off. Or you know what? We need to go out to your favorite restaurant. Or maybe I just need to bring you some cupcakes. Like they'll do these things that help you start to reset and then put things back into perspective. And that way you're ready. You feel like, okay, I can keep going without letting myself just burn all the way out. Okay. Chess principles. How are we doing on time? Okay, we still got time. Okay. I love playing chess growing up. I recommend everybody play chess. Has everybody seen the movie Arrival? Maybe, maybe not. I can't see the chat, so I'm not sure. So, if you've not seen the movie Arrival, I highly recommend it. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. It's about aliens coming to Earth, and you're like, oh, aliens coming to Earth. But it's bigger than that. It's about the core piece of it comes that they have to learn the language of the aliens, and they do this based on one principle that's real that exists in reality right now, and that is every time you learn another language, not just how to speak it but how to read it, it rewires the way that you think. It not just rewires it, it expands the way that you think, because each style of writing that each culture has is so dramatically different that you have to understand its nuances a little bit. And that starts to go, okay, I can see it from this perspective. I can see it from that perspective. That's true with writing. It's true with learning additional activities like strategy things. Chess is a great one. So if you haven't learned chess, I highly recommend it. It helps expand your view when you're starting to look at things. If you have the time, learn another language too. That's always good. Okay. In chess, there's some core principles to understand. In chess, you want to control the center of your board. You want to control the center of your environment, which is important. People who play checkers, they start to move on the edges to be cautious. And sure, in chess, you can be cautious, but you have the goal of always trying to control the middle of everything, control your center. You want to develop your major pieces, your resources. You want to put those support people around you, like we talked about, so that they can believe in you and your projects. And then don't expose your king or queen. Vital resources. All of us have resources that are irreplaceable. Some of it's time, some of it's money, sometimes it's introductions to other people. Make sure before you expend those resources on a project or people within your circle, make sure that you can understand what the end result is probably going to look like. Make sure that you've fleshed that out before you make those decisions, because sometimes we just want to support our friends and loved ones that will do things pretty fast because we just want to be good friends or family members. And then there could have been a better way. And we realized that afterwards. Hindsight's 2020. But just make sure you're evaluating what you're doing before you rush into these things, especially with circles of friends and pieces. Patience is vital. We talked about Herman Melville. I don't expect you to wait 100 years to see if your writing was any good. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is don't write a book and have it published and just think, okay, it's going to be just successful right now. Or maybe it will be successful, but don't think, okay, my next book is going to be just as successful, if not more, just because my first one was. You can't set those same expectations. It's like reloading each time. It's re-rolling the dice each time to see what happens. Okay. The hardest part is removing your pride and ego when it comes to your self-doubt, right? Because really that's what gets bruised so easily. Our egos are the easiest thing to bruise. We make them as soft as like a peach, and if any little thing is said to it, then it like bruises instantly, and you're like, oh, and it takes a long time to repair, and it doesn't feel good. So the key is to go, okay, if I'm going to be in an environment, whatever's said, I need to make sure I can brush past it if it's negative. If it's constructive, that's different. If they're like, hey, I loved what you did on the panel, I just wish you would have said this, talked about this a little bit more. That's not going against your ego, as recognizing that's constructive criticism to help you improve and get better. You could tie that in. But if they came up and said, I don't think you should have been on that panel, you were terrible, Okay, you just need to say thank you for attending and walk away. All right, you need to not let your ego get in there and get bruised, because that's when it starts to then that monkey grows like 10 feet as soon as something like that said. Now, thankfully, nobody's ever said that to me, but that's not because people weren't thinking it. And once again, I think if I think that they say that, then it could be true. Um, Perception is reality is the greatest phrase. What you perceive is real to you. And if you think everybody's talking bad about you or saying you don't deserve to be there, then it becomes real to you. But if you think everybody's there to be both entertained and learn something, then that's what they're there for. Your brain will click it into place. So that's part of the recognition. Okay. Write your goals out. A lot of people have like writing goals and daily goals, but write some bigger goals out. What do you want to accomplish this quarter? When do I want to have this book finished? Not that you need to set a deadline, not that that's a bad thing, but set some goals ahead of yourself so that you can make sure you can track your progress to see if you're on track or if you need to make adjustments for yourself or for your project, and that will help your confidence stay high. Nothing's worse than saying something's ongoing. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years who I've talked to them at 5 years of conferences, and they're like, I'm still writing that same novel. I'm like, oh, well, when do you think it's going to get done? Oh, I don't know. It'll get done when it gets done. And for themselves, they're putting themselves down and they don't know it. They're saying, I'm not confident that this can get done by the end of the year. I'm not confident I can be done with this anytime soon. Right? But they don't realize that they're really saying that to themselves when they say it to somebody else. So write down your goals, make the goals, share it with your team so they can hold you accountable. We have writing partners and accountability partners, which is great. Share your goals with them so they could be on the same page. Sometimes they'll see opportunities that you can't. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, I saw this submission open up on this website to enter this short story over here, and I just read your short story. It's a perfect fit, but you didn't see it. It didn't come across your feed, or you didn't hear about it through somebody else. It's because your support group knows your goals. They know that you want to get that done. So it's that kind of thing that will really help out. Find balance. That's the hardest thing. I know it's easy to say. I could say find balance and everybody will be happy. No, finding balance is the most difficult thing. So many companies I've worked for say work-life balance. I'm like, but they don't really believe that. They believe in work as hard as you can, and maybe you'll get a tiny bit of seeing your family. Maybe there'll be a little bit of balance on the weekends when you're not here. Finding balance is different for everybody. And for some people, it means the balance needs to be a little bit busier. It needs to be a little less busier. Maybe it means trying new things because you've not really pushed your boundaries. Volunteer work. Anytime you get a chance to volunteer for anything, it doesn't have to be in the writing community, anything. It's proven that when you volunteer, it really releases endorphins and improves your self-confidence. It just does. That's a universal study that's out there. You can Google that one. It's so powerful that I recommend everybody volunteer in some capacity, someplace. It doesn't have to be like all the time. You don't have to be on 5 different nonprofit boards. I did that one time, and that's a lot. Just going to help out, on a weekend here or there, or going to do something over there, or sometimes it's helping a neighbor who didn't, may have said something but didn't really ask for help. And you could say, hey, I can come help you do this thing if you want. Just those little bits of volunteering go a long way in improving your self-confidence, which is amazing. Okay, I drew these charts because I'm colorblind and I have no idea what color is what. No, the point of this is perspective. As your career grows, as you start to grow your elephant and reduce your monkey, as you start to become more powerful, you'll start to do something that you don't anticipate, and that's influencing other people. When you talk, when you speak, it gets to the point where whatever you say, positive or negative, it will really influence people a great deal. Whether you say, I like this book, I didn't like that book. People will avoid a whole series of books just because you said you didn't like it. It's as you grow your elephant and you get that power, people want to kind of latch onto that. They want to get behind people who are our confidence. It's understanding how to use your confidence for good and not evil. Sometimes the evil is unintended. I didn't mean for people to not try that sandwich shop. I didn't mean for people to not listen to that music. It's just be like, okay, I can share much more good than I can things I don't like. Right. And that will influence people to stay positive and move towards the positive things as well. So as you start to grow your elephant, continue to share that gratitude, continue to share that positivity with other people, and it'll really start to positively impact people to do the same, which is excellent. Brandon Sanderson's one of my favorite examples. In college, he had the exact same writing group that he has today. He has helped, and they have helped him grow his career. And all of them around him, the bulk of them have publishing careers because Brandon was also there for them when he got big, but also when there were times they were there for him when it came to how do I do this in my company? How do I do this? I can't be everywhere all at once. I need a representative. You can have the same thing too. It doesn't necessarily, once again, don't compare yourself to Brandon. Just go, okay, as I gain my influence, as we start to do this positivity thing, let's help everybody move the same direction. Okay, thank you. And that's so I'm easy to get a hold of, super easy to get a hold of. Uh my email, I'm one of the few people that my first and last name is at Gmail because I got in early, I guess. Or actually, there's not very many Jared Quans in the world. And I have my website there as well. So if you have any questions after this, of course, you feel free to email me. I'm pretty sure we're pretty close on time, if not quite over. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I talked a ton.
I don't have questions, but thank you for introducing the monkey versus the elephant concepts. I haven't heard those
Mhm.
before.
Agreed.
Awesome. Yeah, it's fun because it's right. It's after you think about it, you're like, oh, that's so true.
Mhm.
That and sometimes the monkey's like, you should be thinking about this, but look, there's something shiny over there, and you're like, oh, yeah, shiny.
I've got to follow the shiny. That's the most important thing. I've got to follow the shiny.
Right? Yes. I hate that I'm so attracted to the shiny.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel like imposter syndrome, like it's just kind of it like bleeds into everything. So I appreciate you talking about it because even just like normal work, because it's like, well, I don't know. Oh, here's my little video. But yeah, so I always value this presentation because it's like, yeah, you need to remind yourself that hey, not everyone's perfect and we're all kind of working towards the same stuff.
There's one other thing I didn't put in there that I sometimes show people. So you can kind of see I've got like a bunch of stuff behind me, right? My room, it's kind of wild. Like it gets more expansive with stuff. But there up there is sure I have awards and autographed pictures and things, but there's this gold shovel that I have up there, not for burying bodies. Gold shovels aren't good for that. But when as you start to get successful, as you start to get achievements and awards, you need to celebrate them. You need to put them someplace where you can see them to reinforce that I do deserve to be here. You can look over your stuff and say, I do have the experience. It's appropriate for me to be here. Putting it in a way that makes it both pleasing to your eye and really reinforces that is great. I'm not saying you have to like put it on the front of your house for everybody else to see. It's something that you really enjoy, something that brings happiness. The gold shovel, by the way, represents my greatest success and my greatest failure in one shot. So like it's one of those things where I have it there to know that I can accomplish amazing things and it's okay to fail at the same time. So it's those kinds of things that you have hanging around that makes it really really good.
I like that.
Cool. So I gotta ask before we kind of end this thing, because in there, first, how many of you currently do daily journaling? Yeah,
Not every
I
day.
right. It's hard. It's hard every day, right? That's why I recommend even like doing it separately. Like I have a little notebook by the side of my bed where I just, before I go to sleep, I just reach over and write out the one or two things that I'm grateful for the day that I accomplished. Just doing that is just brought me all sorts of happiness. So if you start doing that, I think you'll see the greatest impact the fastest, both across all areas of your life. Awesome.
Sorry, I had to be muted earlier, but I did put a question in the chat.
Oh,
I have a really difficult time making friends,
yes.
and I also have, chronic illness and stuff. You're familiar with my situation, but I don't have a whole lot of support.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with not having much of a support team?
So so I know it's that's the hardest situation of all is to have those things that some of those things are outside your control that you can't just be like, hey, I'm always going to go to do this thing because you have restrictions that come up that aren't purposeful, right? Like, oh no, I can't go to this or go to that. The thing that I recommend is starting to find secondary groups. And what I mean by this is like, so like on Discord groups, how many Discord groups are you a part of? The laugh either means a ton or none.
I'm part of a lot of them.
A lot of them, yes. It's then virtually poaching friends. Poaching's not a great word. Virtually recruiting friends, I should say. Right? You kind of have to think of it kind of like a video game in that sense, where you go out there to start having just virtual conversations with them, having those same conversations that you would have in person over that Discord text, or sometimes just video through Discord, and then inviting them to your Discord server to have your little friends Discord server to start building that little bit of friend group. That that's the easiest that I could see from the current restraints that you have. That could be the fastest way to grow and start to strengthen a friend group, support group around you when it comes to those pieces. Especially when you're like, I'm not putting in any requirement on you. You don't have to come and read my book. You don't have to come and do this thing. But if you are into this, there's a little separate tab in my Discord where you can come read this story that I wrote or critique this little poem that I wrote or whatever. Giving them that kind of option is great. Now, not everybody is great at Discord. I mean, they might be good on a server, but not on all servers. So for some people, when you start to get to build that friendship, and then it's like, okay, are you comfortable sharing your phone number, or so that we can, just text? Maybe it's just a little text back and forth here and there. Hey, don't know if you saw my thing on Discord. I was just talking about this. I was thinking about you, or just even I'm grateful you're on my Discord server. Boy, that really does a great job of kind of quote unquote guilting people into looking at their disc. Seriously, that actually happened to me this morning where a friend of mine's like, hey, you're on my Discord server, but you don't seem to be doing much. She said, do I need to kick you off the server or are you going to participate? Now, she was being playful, and I knew she was being playful. And so we were able to joke about it. But just a little text, even just a little nudge. And I was like, oh, yeah, I better go check out and see what's new on Discord. So starting with maybe some Discord people, getting them onto your individual channel, sharing some stuff, having them share some stuff, getting them open to text messaging might be the easiest way to start building that. I'm not going to say it's going to be fast. Going to chapters is great when you can go to chapters. There are a lot of chapters that meet online now, that are excellent. And of course, you don't have to necessarily join each and every chapter to go participate in their meetings, to be able to get to know them, hear their voices, because somebody might say something that really resonates with you, and you're like, I write the same way, or I feel the same way about this author. Then you could reach out to them, separately and say, hey, I was at this meeting of the chapter. Just curious, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on this author or something, just to start growing that from something small. It's funny because I teach a class up at the University of Utah on networking and communication with people, especially those who struggle in this modern era of both technology and isolationism. So yeah, no, I totally get it. Was that helpful, or were you like, okay, it sounds good, but
No, that is actually helpful. It definitely gave me some things to think about. So.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, Liz, are we at time?
We are. Thank you, Jared.
Perfect. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Cool. And just like before, the recording will be made available so that people can see it after the fact too. But it's only for the people who are in this conference, so or who signed up on online. So yeah, anyway. If everyone wants to, we're about to do our lunch panel. So if you just want to jump back into the main room, all you have to do is leave room. Just don't leave meeting because that means you'll leave the entire Zoom meeting. So